Took the graveyard shift at Marty's Mart because it paid a little more. Midnight to 6, quiet hours, less people, and a radio I could blast in the background. At least that's what I told myself. My name's Chris, 23, broke, and trying to save up for something better. Maybe a car that starts in the winter. Maybe to finally leave this sleepy Ohio town. My first week was uneventful. Stoners buying snacks, truckers grabbing coffee. But then came Friday night. It started normal. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the hum of the drink coolers. At 2:13 a.m. sharp, the door chimed. A woman walked in, pale, black coat, hair hanging wet and matted, like she'd been caught in a storm, but outside the skies were clear. "Welcome," I said, trying not to sound too nervous. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked straight to aisle 13, the cleaning supplies aisle. Except, there is no aisle 13. We only had 12 aisles. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, but there she was, walking past the rows of laundry soap and mops, vanishing between shelves where no aisle existed. I checked the camera monitor. Nothing. Just a static glitch. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out from behind the counter. And that's when the music on the radio stopped. Silence. Then, static, followed by a whisper. "You saw her, didn't you?" I spun around. No one. Just me and the flickering lights. But the clock, it was still stuck at 2:13. Time wasn't moving, and the woman hadn't come back. Only her wet footprints, leading to nowhere. I stared at the wall clock above the fridge section. 2:13 a.m. We're still. I pulled out my phone. The screen refused to load. No signal, no battery percentage, just a dim glow in the same time. 2:13. My heart was thudding louder than the hum of the coolers now. I walked toward the phantom aisle 13, where I'd seen her vanish. It didn't exist. Not on the store map, not on the floor layout in my training booklet. But in that moment, it was there. I stepped in. A sudden cold swept over me, like opening a freezer door into a blizzard. The shelves were different, lined not with soap or sponges, but things I couldn't recognize. Old bottles with faded labels, jars filled with cloudy liquid, rusted metal tools. And at the far end stood her. She was facing away, staring at the corner, unmoving. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words stuck in my throat. I turned to leave, but behind me, the aisle had closed in. The shelves now stretched high above my head, taller than before, forming a tunnel. Then she moved. Her head turned first, slowly, unnaturally. I didn't see her face, only the pale side of her cheek and a sliver of her eye, dark as coal. "Why did you follow me?" she asked. The voice wasn't from her mouth. It was all around me, above, behind, inside my skull. I work here, I managed to say. "Not anymore," she replied. Suddenly I felt the floor shift. The tiles under my feet cracked like ice, revealing blackness beneath. I stumbled backward, reaching for anything to grab. "And then," she screamed. The sound was sharp, metallic, like a train screeching to a halt in my ears. My flashlight burst, plunging the aisle into darkness. I ran. Blind, terrified, I bolted forward until I slammed into metal. I was back in aisle 1. Time ticked forward. 2:14 a.m. The radio returned. The cool air vanished. But when I looked at the floor, the wet footprints were still there. And they were multiplying. By 2:20 a.m., I was shaking. I locked the front doors, something we're not supposed to do. But I didn't care. I needed time to think, to breathe, to understand what the hell just happened. I cleaned up the broken flashlight glass, trying to convince myself I'd imagined everything. Maybe it was sleep deprivation. Maybe I dozed off and dreamed it all. That would have been easier to believe, if not for the footprints. They were still wet, still growing. They led from the front door into aisle 13, which no longer existed, and then back out, branching in 2 directions. It was like someone else had joined her. At 2:31 a.m., the door chimed again. But I'd locked it. I looked up and froze. There was a man standing just inside the entrance. He hadn't opened the door. He hadn't walked in. He was just there. Long gray coat, wide-brimmed hat, face in shadow. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. I backed away slowly, heart hammering. "Sir?" I asked. My voice cracked. No response. I picked up the store phone. No dial tone. Of course. Then I tried the PA mic to page the back office, even though no one else was on shift. It screamed static. Then a voice came through. But not mine. "He's not here for snacks." I dropped the mic. The man was now in the middle of the store. He hadn't walked, he just was, closer than before. His coat dripped water like he'd come in from a storm that still didn't exist. He lifted his head slowly, and beneath the hat, there was no face. Just skin, pale and stretched, where eyes and mouth should be. He pointed toward the back, toward aisle 13. No, I wasn't going back there. I ran for the stockroom, slamming the door shut behind me. My hands fumbled for something, anything to block it. Then I heard a knock. Not from the door, from inside the stockroom. I turned around, and in the back corner was aisle 13. There it was, again, aisle 13, right in the stockroom where it had absolutely no reason to be. It looked different this time, longer, narrower. The shelves weren't stocked with anything familiar, just boxes with names scribbled in what looked like charcoal. Some were open, empty, others pulsed. Yes, pulsed, like something inside them was breathing. I backed away, heart racing, but the stockroom door behind me wouldn't budge. No handle, no hinges. Just a solid, unmoving wall. And from the aisle's shadowy depths, footsteps, deliberate, crunching, getting closer. I reached for my pocket knife. Company policy said no weapons on shift, but I always kept one just in case of robberies. This wasn't a robbery. It was worse. Then I saw something I didn't expect. A mirror. Propped at the end of the aisle. Old, cracked, gold-framed. It hadn't been there a second ago. The footsteps stopped. I stepped closer, drawn to it. The reflection was off. I could see myself, but behind me stood the woman from earlier, her eyes hollow, her mouth twisted in an unnatural smile. She didn't blink. Neither did I. Then she spoke, but not from her mouth, from mine. My reflection's lips moved without me. "He's not just visiting." I turned, expecting to see her. Nothing. When I looked back, the mirror now showed the man in the hat, standing behind me, his reflection clearer than ever, closer than ever. I spun around. Again, no one. But when I turned back to the mirror it was showing me, but older, paler, and inside my eyes, something else, something alive. The reflection raised its hand, reached toward the glass, and for a moment, I felt my fingers grow cold. As if it wasn't just mimicking me, it was replacing me. I staggered back, and the aisle began to vanish, shelves crumbling, boxes turning to ash. The mirror cracked, one slow split across its surface. And just like that, it was gone. The stockroom returned, boxes of chips, toilet paper rolls, janitor buckets. But in the center of the floor lay a single black box. No label, no lid. Inside, my name, written in something that looked like dried blood. I stood frozen in the middle of the stockroom, my eyes locked on the single black box lying on the linoleum floor. Its presence was inexplicable, a stark, malignant centerpiece amidst everyday merchandise. I knelt slowly before it, my breath shallow and labored, as if fear itself had seized control of my body. There was no sound except for my heart pounding in my ears. The box was smooth and sealed, its surface unnervingly unblemished save for the chilling inscription. My name scrawled in dried blood. I couldn't recall ever writing it, yet there it was, in a language that felt as though it had been etched by some unseen hand. The blood was dry now, yet the stain was vivid, a reminder of a violence I hadn't experienced. I reached out, trembling, to touch the box. My fingers brushed against the cool plastic, and an electric shock of dread coursed through me. Suddenly the silence shattered. The air seemed to whisper, wrapping around my senses. Fragments of a voice I couldn't quite understand. Disjointed syllables that chilled my blood. I stepped back, my mind racing. Had this box materialized to deliver a message? Or was it a harbinger of some fate I couldn't escape? My curiosity warred with instinct. I tried to lift the lid, expecting it to be locked, yet it responded as if inviting inspection. The motion was nearly imperceptible, a slight tug as if the box itself were urging me to open it. With every fiber of my being urging me to run, I pried at the edge. The lid swung open with a creak, and a waft of stale, cold air burst forth. Inside lay not objects, but a single, battered notebook, its pages yellowed and stained, as if it had passed through countless horrors. I hesitated only a moment before reaching in. The notebook was wrapped in a thin layer of something sticky, and my hands recoiled from the unpleasant texture before I managed to open it. Faded ink sprawled across the pages in frantic, uneven script. A diary of sorts. As I scanned its contents, a bone-deep chill took over. It chronicled a similar night shift at a Minimarket, detailing strange occurrences that gradually escalated. The entry spoke of unexplainable apparitions, time losing its meaning, and a recurring visitor who had once been a normal patron, but then transformed into a grotesque mirror of his true self. The final entry made my blood run cold. It described a ritual, a desperate, forbidden attempt to banish an ancient presence dwelling in the Isles. The writer confessed that he had become trapped between worlds, his identity slowly eroded by forces unseen. His final words were a plea: find the truth in the box. Only then can you break free from this nightmare. I closed the book, my heart in a vice grip of terror and determination. The words echoed in my mind, a maddening refrain. Was I meant to follow his clues? Was there a way out of this labyrinth of dread? Or had I unwittingly stepped into a trap that consumed souls? The store's hum returned gradually, a distorted version of normalcy that mocked my terror. Lights flickered overhead, and somewhere beyond the aisles, a low rumble resonated as if something far larger than this room was stirring. I looked back at the black box. Its secret had been entrusted to me, in the silent promise that unraveling its mystery might be my only chance to escape the nightmare. With no other option, I took a deep breath, clutched the diary tightly, and resolved to follow the cryptic instructions, unaware that each step would plunge me deeper into the darkness of Aisle 13's unholy domain. Clutching the diary, I stepped back onto the floor of the Minimarket, half expecting the world to twist again. But everything looked normal, too normal. Shelves neatly stacked, freezers humming, the front door still locked. But now I knew it was just a mask. The diary had a diagram scrawled across one of the back pages, rough shapes that resembled the store's layout. Only there was a new section labeled in shaky handwriting, "Shelf of the Forgotten behind the milk cooler." That made no sense. There was nothing behind that wall, just solid concrete. Or so I thought. I walked to the back of the store. The milk cooler buzzed softly, condensation forming beads on its glass. I pressed my hand against the wall behind it. It was warm. I pushed harder. It gave. The entire cooler creaked forward with a mechanical hiss, sliding just a few inches. Enough to reveal a crack in the wall, a hidden door, smeared with what looked like scratch marks and dark stains. It smelled of rot and damp wood. My breath fogged the air as I stepped through. What I found wasn't a room. It was a narrow hallway, dimly lit by a single flickering bulb overhead. The shelves on either side were filled, not with food or supplies, but with belongings. Children's toys, wallets, phones, shoes, mismatched and bloodstained, name tags from uniforms, just like mine. I reached for one. Thomas Redden Night Clerk. It looked decades old. The plastic was cracked, yellowed, and behind it, a photo of him, pale, blank-eyed, wearing my exact uniform. Suddenly, the bulb above me popped, plunging the corridor into darkness. I turned on my backup flashlight, only to find the shelves had changed. Now they were filled with portraits, each one of a person screaming, mouths open in terror, faces contorted, eyes pitch black. My light flicked across them, one by one, until it landed on the last frame. My heart stopped. It was me, my own face, pale, twisted, dead-eyed. The moment I blinked, the glass of the frame cracked. Behind me, something shuffled. Not footsteps, dragging, heavy, wet. I turned slowly. At the end of the hall was the faceless man. But this time, he held a mirror. And in it, my reflection smiled back. But I wasn't smiling. I stood paralyzed, my breath caught somewhere between a scream and a prayer. The faceless man lifted the mirror higher, tilting it toward me. It shimmered, not like glass but like the surface of water, and the reflection grew darker, deeper. It began to ripple. And then it reached out. A pale hand emerged from the mirror. My hand. It mimicked me perfectly, down to the scratches on my knuckles from earlier. But it moved with a slow, serpentine grace, not bound by hesitation or fear. It wasn't a copy, it was a version. One without soul, without restraint. And it wanted out. I stumbled backward, bumping into the shelves behind me. Something fell with a metallic clang, an old bell, the kind you'd hear at a motel reception desk. It echoed too loudly, as if it rang through more than just this hallway. The air changed. The corridor pulsed with energy. The portraits rattled. Dust curled up from the floor like smoke. The faceless man stepped forward, mirror still extended, while the hand on the other side pushed further, now gripping the frame's edge. It was trying to pull itself through. I turned to run, but the corridor was gone, replaced by aisles. Twisting, endless aisles that stretched into darkness. They weren't from the store. The shelves were wrong, too tall, too thin, filled with things that moved, meat that blinked, bottles that whispered, packages that breathed in and out like lungs. Every aisle sign read the same, Echo, aisle 13. I ran. Every turn led to another 13. The floor changed with every step. Tile, then wood, then wet grass, then something soft that squished. The air was thick, too quiet. Until I heard it. Footsteps. Dozens of them. They came from all directions, shuffling, dragging, some fast, some slow, all getting closer. I turned a corner and collided with a woman in a store uniform. Her eyes were wide, bloodshot, her skin sickly gray. She grabbed my collar and hissed, "Don't let it wear your face! Don't let it walk out as you!" Then she was pulled back into the shadows, her screams swallowed by the dark. I kept running. Then, suddenly I saw it. The real exit sign, glowing faintly above an old employee door. I rushed to it, praying it wasn't another trick. But just before I reached it, the mirror reappeared, blocking the path. This time I was already inside it, and that version of me was smiling. It raised a finger and beckoned me in. The mirror pulsed like a heartbeat, its surface alive with ripples. My reflection, not me but some twisted echo, still smiled, eyes pitch black and knowing. It pointed to the surface again, urging me to step forward. I didn't want to. Every instinct screamed run, but there was nowhere left to go. The aisles behind me had vanished, replaced by an endless wall of mirrors, each one showing different angles of me, panicking, crying, aging rapidly, decaying. There was only one way forward. With a shaking breath, I touched the mirror. It was cold at first, then warm. Then it pulled me in. I didn't fall, I sank. Through layers of images, memories I didn't remember, versions of myself I'd never been. I saw myself as a child, alone in the dark, as an old man screaming into a phone with no cord, as a figure locked behind a counter while the world outside burned red. Each version looked at me, as if begging to switch places. And then I landed. Hard. I was back in the store. Or something like it. Only it was frozen in time. Dust floated in midair. A spilled soda hung motionless, droplets suspended. The lights above buzzed silently, on but not flickering. And every customer in the store stood perfectly still, like mannequins or corpses. Their faces turned slowly toward me, not with movement, but like paper twisting in windless air. And then I saw him, the real me, at the register, smiling, talking to someone, or living. He didn't notice me. He was wearing my body, my voice. He rang up items for an elderly woman, laughed politely, said, "Have a good night." I banged on the glass between us. It was like watching a memory from the other side of a window, but he didn't hear. None of them did. I looked down at my hands. They weren't mine anymore. Translucent, fading. I was becoming the next ghost trapped in this store's cycle, another forgotten soul in the shelves behind the milk cooler. Unless I could break it. I opened the diary again, its last page now glowing faintly. A single sentence had appeared. Reverse the mirror. Find the one who remembers your name. Who still remembered me? My real name? I wasn't sure anymore. But I had to find out before my reflection sealed itself inside my life for good. Time didn't pass in the mirror world. It bled. Moments oozed and melted into each other, impossible to grasp. I wandered the still aisles of the frozen store, clutching the diary like a lifeline, whispering my own name over and over to remind myself I still existed. But the more I said it, the less it felt real. I watched the impostor in my body live my shift, take my breaks, smile my smile. Customers laughed with him. No one noticed anything wrong. He was perfect. Too perfect. I began to forget what my voice sounded like, what my home looked like, what it felt like to be me. And then, a sound. Faint, muffled, like static breaking through water. A voice. "You okay, Nick?" Nick. That was my name. It came from the front of the store, outside the mirror world, somewhere beyond the glass. I ran toward the sound, navigating the frozen aisles, knocking over unmoving customers and displays. At the front counter, the impostor paused. He heard it too. His smile faltered. He turned his head, not toward the door, but toward me, and winked. I slammed my hands against the invisible barrier, shouting as loud as I could. "I'm here! I'm Nick! Help me!" The air trembled. The diary in my hand burned hot. A new line scrawled itself onto the page, written by something unseen. They only see what they expect. Break the pattern. Leave a scar. Leave a scar. I scanned the scene, the impostor still standing at the register, his back now slightly hunched. Cracks were forming on the floor around him, like spiderwebs on glass. That was it. This wasn't about being seen. It was about being felt. I picked up a glass bottle from the shelf, took a deep breath, and smashed it against my own face. Blood, real or not, spilled down my chin. I grabbed a shard and carved into my forearm, "Help Nick." The pain was real. The scar was real. And on the other side, the cashier dropped the receipt he was handing a customer. His hand trembled. He stared at the register, then down at his arm. Blood. A scar. A name. He stumbled backward, eyes wide in terror. "No, no, I'm not!" The customer screamed. Another backed away. Someone dropped a phone. They saw it too. Cracks shattered across the mirror world like lightning. And I saw him, my old friend Ryan, now a night cop standing outside the store, pressing his hands against the glass, mouthing my name. "Nick, what the hell?" The diary burst into flame in my hands. Pages turned black, crumbling into ash. The store around me collapsed, and the mirror began to bleed. The mirror bled like it had veins, thick, dark liquid oozing from the cracks that spiderwebbed across the invisible barrier between the false store and reality. The blood hissed when it hit the floor, evaporating into curls of black smoke. Outside, I saw Ryan shouting my name. He was banging on the glass now. He could see me. For the first time, someone saw the real me. The impostor, still in my body, froze. His black eyes flickered, his smile twitching unnaturally. He knew. The veil was breaking. I didn't wait. I sprinted toward the mirrored wall, the scar on my arm burning like a brand. I could feel the line between the worlds thinning, fraying at the edges. "Nick!" Ryan's voice cut through the air like a lifeline. I raised the bloodied shard of glass from earlier, and with everything I had left, drove it into the mirror. It shattered, not like glass, but like bone, with a sound so sharp, so final, that it nearly split my skull, until a light exploded. And then darkness. I woke up gasping on the cold tile floor of the Minimarket. My hands were scraped, my shirt soaked with sweat and blood. The lights above flickered erratically. Products were scattered everywhere like a storm had torn through the aisles. Ryan stood over me, eyes wide, one hand gripping his holstered gun. "You were gone, man," he said. "I've been calling your name for 15 minutes. You looked like you were in a trance. You wouldn't move." I sat up slowly, dizzy. The mirror gone. The shelves normal. The customers gone, or maybe never there. I looked at my arm. The scar was still there. Faint, but real. "Someone took my place," I whispered. Ryan frowned. "What are you talking about?" I turned to look at the security monitors. Every screen showed me. Still behind the counter. Still smiling. Still ringing up customers. Ryan didn't see it, but I did. I looked into the camera feed, and the version of me on screen turned ever so slightly and winked. That wink on the security monitor chilled me to the bone. It wasn't a glitch, it wasn't a reflection, it was a message. The imposter still lurked, somewhere in the store, or maybe beyond. I wasn't sure if it was a ghost, a curse, or something worse. A dark version of myself that had slipped in through the mirror, waiting to take over my life. Ryan looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "You need to get checked out, Nick. You're not making any sense." But I couldn't shake the feeling that the store was alive, that the aisles twisted and shifted when no one watched, that the whispering shadows behind the milk cooler were waiting for me to slip up. I spent the next few nights back at the store, trying to catch a glimpse of that other me, but the cameras showed only empty aisles and blinking lights. Then, one night, the power cut out. The whole store plunged into darkness. I reached for my phone, flashlight on. That's when I heard it. A voice, low and rasping, coming from the back room. "Welcome back, Nick. We've been waiting." The air turned ice cold. I wasn't alone. I edged toward the sound, heart pounding. Suddenly, a hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun around, but there was nothing there. Only the echo of my own breath and a faint smile from the shadows. The smile in the shadows wasn't friendly. It was knowing, like it held all the secrets I was desperate to forget. I backed away, heart hammering, but the store seemed to close in around me. The aisles stretched longer, the fluorescent lights flickered wildly, and the air grew thick, like I was sinking underwater. The voice whispered again just behind me. "You can't run from yourself, Nick. You belong here now." I turned and saw the mirror, whole perfect, reflecting not me, but the imposter grinning with that cold, empty smile. With a surge of will, I grabbed the mirror's edge and yanked. The glass shattered, sending shards flying. The shadows screamed and dissolved into the flickering lights. Suddenly, I was outside. The store's front doors slammed shut behind me. The street was empty and quiet, dawn just breaking. I looked at my scarred arm and took a deep breath. I had escaped. But as I walked away, a cold chill ran down my spine. From inside the store, the security camera feed flickered back on. And there, on the screen, my reflection smiled, waiting.